Climate change is bringing droughts and floods around the world. But in many countries, it's doing something else as well. Acting as a kind of chaos multiplier. I'm in Somalia, one of the most dangerous countries in the world, to report on how climate change is making conflicts in places like this even worse. When drought hits, people begin to fight for access to food and water.
They stay back when they see my gun.
Somalia didn't cause the problem. The entire country has emitted as much carbon dioxide since the 1950s as Americans have in, wait for it, the last 3 days. But Somalia is beginning to help itself, investing in new technology.
Our ambition is to reach 80% to produce from renewable energy.
Starting new businesses.
I buy food from the shop. I cook it and I keep the profit.
There is hope.
There is a whole narrative in the country that's called Somalia Rising.
So what will it take to lift Somalia out of the vicious cycle of climate and conflict? It isn't easy travelling in Somalia. This is one of the most dangerous countries in the world to be a journalist, or for anyone else for that matter. We're with the Red Cross, and to ensure the safety of the team, we've got to bring along some pretty serious security. Somalia is the only country in the world where the International Red Cross travels with armed guards as standard. We are headed out into the wild scrub that covers much of the country to meet a community who are right on the front line of climate change. Somalia is still overwhelmingly an agricultural society. Some 2/3 of the people here depend on farming. About half the population earns its living by herding animals.
When I had many camels, would walk very far. I would take them to places with good pasture where they could flourish.
Sheikh Don Ismail used to be a nomadic camel herder. The herders sing traditional songs to soothe the animals as they scoop water into the camel's trough. The climate has always been harsh and variable here, but for thousands of years, people have been able to eke out a living by moving their animals from one pasture to the next in these dry lands. But the patterns of rain that make that possible seem to be breaking down.
We used to have a good life, but recently the droughts have become more frequent.
The rains in Somalia usually come twice a year, but between 2020 and 2022, they failed 5 times in a row. It caused Somalia's worst drought for 40 years and pushed the country to the edge of famine.
There was nowhere to go to. The well became dry and there was no pasture. And then the animals began to die.
Scientists estimate human-caused climate change made the recent drought in Somalia 100 times more likely. I'm amazed at how productive it is. Sheikh Don was lucky. He has a small farm, but it wasn't enough.
We planted maize and grass. I cut it and fed it to the animals. But then the wells became shallow and there just wasn't enough food.
Sheikh Don lost all his camels. He says there isn't enough food for the family now.
Most of us don't have water. So the life we live now is really bad. Really bad.
Tensions have risen in the community, he says. When drought hits, herders compete to get pasture and for water. They sometimes invade farms to feed their animals, and it can get violent.
There's no respect if you don't have a gun. The herders who lead their animals into the farm stay back when they see my weapon. They get scared of you.
These localized disputes can rapidly spiral into full-blown battles, and not just in Somalia. These fights for access to resources are a key driver intensifying conflicts across the whole of North Africa, says the head of the International Red Cross in the region.
Access to borehole, access to pasture land are more and more difficult to find or to get, and so population living in similar areas might end up competing for those resources. And sometimes it goes to people shooting at each other.
Somalia is on the east coast of Africa. Its population is split into a series of clan groups, which are a key source of identity for Somali people.
And now to British Somaliland, a company of the Somali Camel Corps in training.
During the colonial era, the clan territories were merged into two colonies, Italian Somalia and British Somaliland. At independence in 1960, they were merged to form the independent Somali Republic. A brutal dictator, Siad Barre, took power after a coup. His repressive rule suppressed clan conflicts. But when Barre was overthrown in 1991, the country collapsed into a civil war and jihadist insurgency. Western attempts to hold back the chaos ended in disaster and humiliation when 2 US Black Hawk helicopters were shot down over Mogadishu, the capital city. 2 dead American soldiers were dragged through the streets, leading to a public outcry in the US. In 1995, Western troops pulled out, and they have not returned. Decades of anarchy have followed. There's a brutal Islamist insurgency, a civil war in parts of the country, and a whole series of regional and clan conflicts. And the fighting has created a sickening circularity. Climate change is making resources even more scarce, heightening the conflict, while at the same time the conflict leaves the country more vulnerable to climate shocks. And Somalia doesn't just face drought, it is dealing with a weather and climate double whammy. We have come way down to the south of Somalia. This place, Kismayo, is a port town. It has been bitterly fought over. At one stage, Islamist militants from the lethal Al-Qaeda affiliate Al-Shabaab overran the place. It was retaken by the Somali army about a decade ago, but the threat hasn't gone away. Al-Shabaab forces still surround the town. The front line is just 60 kilometers away. It means the town is like an island, cut off from the rest of the country, but not from the weather. The year after the drought, Somalia was hit with terrible floods caused by rains reckoned to have been made twice as intense thanks to human-caused global warming. The floods killed hundreds of people and displaced more than 1 million more. It wrecked farms and killed yet more animals. And because the country is divided by conflict, it is even harder to deal with the consequences of these climate shocks. Every day, a steady stream of mothers bring in their sick babies and children to this hospital in Kismayo. Many have risked crossing the front line to get here. All of them are hungry. The UN has developed a special classification for different degrees of hunger. It says 4 million Somalis, 1 in 5 of the population, face either acute or emergency food insecurity. These are two of the highest steps on what you might call a kind of stairway of human misery. They sit just behind the very top step. Famine. The UN reckons more than 1.5 million children under the age of 5 are acutely malnourished. It means aid agencies like the International Red Cross are stretched to the limit.
Our mandate is to protect and assist people who are victims of armed conflict. By extension, people who are also victims of other situations of violence, which is a lesser type of conflict. But even if we are not specialized in climate change, it's something we have to take into account, because for the last 3 years there were natural catastrophes that are directly linked to the climate change that basically prevented us from doing our job fully the way we wanted to do it, and that also affected very badly the population.
Salma Abdul Qadir lives in an area controlled by Al-Shabaab. She was 9 months pregnant when her baby son fell ill. She had to travel for 2 whole days to get to this hospital.
It was awful. There was no one else to carry my sick child, just me. And there was so much rain, I had to wade through mud.
There is a cycle here. Years of conflict have made communities less resilient, so they are more vulnerable when floods or droughts hit.
The only thing we had was the farm, and it was washed away. We don't have anything now.
It can seem hopeless, but Somalis are strong people, and like the babies in this hospital, they can recover.
My little baby looked like an inflated sack when I brought him here. You couldn't see his eyes, he was so swollen. Now look at him. Praise be to God.
Abdi Hakim Ainti advises the Somali Prime Minister on climate change.
So climate change, I would rate number 1 over every other challenge that we have in Somalia.
Hold on, including the conflict that has raged for more than 30 years now.
Including the conflict, yes. Because of the conflict, it is a way you can silence and end the conflict, but you cannot silence or put an end to a science-based problem, which is a natural disaster that is happening and claiming thousands of lives. So I would put climate over every challenge that we have in the country. Yes, there are more deeper and more systemic challenges that we face, but I think climate is the most pressing and the most existential one.
So why do you put climate number 1?
Well, because of the scale and the lives it claims, the condition that it creates. We're talking about 3.8 million people now living in an abject poverty.
The combination of climate change and conflict has driven millions of Somalis into places like this, vast refugee camps. But this isn't run by an international aid organisation. The residents here have to pay rent for the scraps of land their makeshift huts are on. They get few handouts from international agencies, if any at all. Here, they pay for their food and their water. 1 in 5 Somalis are stuck in camps like this. Almost 4 million people are classed as internally displaced. A decade ago, it was just 1 million, and they're kind of stuck in a dreadful limbo, unable to go home, but also unable to move on. Halima's story is typical. Her family lost everything because of drought and had to move to the camp.
The droughts used to be short. We would lose some of our camels and goats, but some would always remain. But they have been getting worse. Now they even kill our strongest camels.
Life in the camp is tough.
Every day gets harder and harder. We don't get any help from anyone. Often, I only have enough food for 1 meal a day.
and there aren't many options when it comes to earning money. After a while here, you notice something really interesting. There aren't that many men. Most of the men have left to find work elsewhere, and the easiest work to get is as a fighter in one of the overlapping conflicts that consume the country. Halima's husband and 4 of her 5 sons have joined a local militia.
They are rural people with no skills, so the only work they could get was in the army. They were desperate, and when you are without food long enough and your children are looking at you, you will do anything.
Halima's family's story is repeated across the country. The millions of people displaced by climate change create a huge pool of potential recruits for clan militia, regional armies, or the jihadist insurgencies. It helps drive the conflict and perpetuate Somalia's cycle of misery. Kafio's family lost all their animals to drought, and like Halima, her husband felt he had no choice but to join a local militia. He was killed in a gun battle in a local town just over a year ago, leaving her looking after their 7 children on her own.
I knew when he joined the militia that he might die or he might survive. When he died, he left me and the children on our own. We don't get support from anywhere, and our breadwinner is dead. Some nights we eat, some we don't.
Meanwhile, the world has other priorities. Other wars in Gaza and Ukraine, for example, are where the world's attention and its cash is focused. The UN has calculated Somalia needs at least $1.6 billion this year, and that is just to meet the basic humanitarian needs of the country. But so far, only around $600 million has been pledged. Yet Somalia bears virtually no responsibility for the changes in the global climate that are wreaking such damage on the country. Oof, camel milk tea. Delicious. Now, the people of Somalia cannot be held responsible for climate change. I've just been doing the numbers on my phone, and the entire country has emitted as much carbon dioxide since the 1950s as Americans have in, wait for it, the last 3 days. But Somalia is taking action. In Garowe, a small city in the north of Somalia, the local power station has been making some dramatic new investments. Well, there's no shortage of wind in this part of Somalia, and they're already using that to generate power and the region's abundant solar resources as well. In fact, 2/3 of this city's power is currently being generated by wind and by solar. The average across the year is much lower, around 10% of total power, but that is changing fast, says the boss of the plant. He says renewables are just much better value than his diesel generators. Each of these beasts costs around $300,000 plus $20,000 a day in diesel, and they only last about 5 years. Meanwhile, the solar panels cost nothing to run and will last about 20 years.
Our ambition is to reach 80% to produce from renewable energy.
He told me his company hasn't received any grants or aid from abroad. It borrowed the $2 million it cost to install the solar panels from the company that made them. And how quickly can you pay that back?
It's 2 years payback loan repayment.
And you can pay that back with the revenues from selling the electricity in 2 years?
Yeah.
That's quick.
Yes.
That is quick. The plan now is to build a much bigger renewable energy plant. It'll cost $17 million and will be backed up with batteries along with a few diesel generators. The cash will be from private investors, and here's the thing. The costs will be so much lower, Mohammed expects to be able to cut prices for consumers in half.
It's cheaper because it has a good lifetime, easy to install, easy to maintain, and now is very cheap, the day after day.
But there is a problem. There are virtually no renewable energy engineers in Somalia. Mohammed's answer, his company is training them up itself for free.
So I must work as hard, give a lot of effort as can possible, so that it can reach the farthest point. From nearest point to my farthest point, I want to reach that point. So for me, I will depend on my effort.
Abdi Nasir believes his training could help transform his life and his country.
I see the future is bright for me, even in Somalia, because we have a new generation who are waking up, having spirits and want to learn something for their country.
Lower electricity prices will be good news for everyone and could have an added environmental bonus too. As we drove around Kismayo, we saw evidence of the trade in charcoal virtually everywhere. It is made from trees and bushes cut from the savanna ecosystem. It's illegal to make in most of the country, but is still widely used for cooking and is also exported to neighbouring Kenya and to the Gulf states. Wow, that one is massive. The charcoal trade is incredibly damaging. It destroys the local ecosystem. Cutting back the trees and bushes makes the soil much more exposed to the increasingly hot dry seasons and much more vulnerable to erosion when the rains eventually come. The fumes from charcoal stoves can also damage health. The hope is cheaper, more reliable electricity will reduce charcoal demand. And when you look around, there are hopeful stories everywhere. On the edge of the refugee camp, men play dominoes outside a cafe. The business is the brainchild of Amina Osman Mohammed. Her family lost their animals to drought, her husband is ill, and she cares for 11 children, including her widowed daughter's kids. But Amina is determined to improve her family's situation.
I buy food from the shop. I cook it and I keep the profit. I want things to be good. I want to get more. It is up to God if I get lucky.
Allah makes your luck, but you also make luck too.
Yes, you are right. Yes, I work hard.
Despite the changing climate, the conflict, the poverty of the camp she lives in, Amina believes in a better future for her family and for her country. And she is not alone.
Somalia is a story of a potential, of a promise, and I don't subscribe to the notion that Somalia is unfixable. I think it's fixable, and it's showing a significant progress on pretty much every front that you can look into.
But a series of recent bomb attacks shows how much still needs to be done. And with climate change turbocharging the conflict in Somalia, the country will need international support as it tries to bring peace and also to make the investments in long-term development that can help build resilience. It will take time, but as I've discovered on my journey here, Somalis are resourceful, entrepreneurial people, and they have not lost hope.